Okay, hi everybody. This is the last artist journey of the season. My name is Carrie Dorsky. I'm the operations coordinator at the Artisan and Business Center. Our artist journey series happens once a month virtually, and we tackle business topics, and we meet with organizations, and we also feature artists. So the last artist journey of the year every year is featuring 5 artists of our residency program. So I'm going to spend just a couple seconds telling you about the residency program, and then we'll get into the good stuff. So our residency program takes 5 artists per year. We spend the year going over how to either start or grow your business. We tackle topics like setting up your website, social media, studio practices, kind of just best practices in working in the art world. And it culminates in a group exhibit at the end of the year. So that's coming up. We have that over at the Art Garage, which is across the street from us, 1400 Cedar Street. It's called Collective Growth, featuring these 5 artists. It opens on July 6th through August 4th, and the big fun night, the opening reception, is July 11th from 5 to 7 p.m. So I'm going to say all that again at the end if you didn't catch it, and make sure to put in the comments to post this video. So the only other thing I want to mention about the residency program is that applications are open right now, and people are applying. So it's kind of a competitive process. We have a juror this year helping us make the decision to narrow down to 5, and applications are open until June 10th. At the night of these lovely people's opening reception on July 11th is when we will announce the next 5 artists. So that is very exciting. Tonight we're going to talk with all of these artists about their year with us, who they are, what they do, and I have a bunch of fun questions for them. So we're just going to hang out and chat. I usually say if anybody's live with us, but nobody is right now, that they can unmute and ask questions. So if anybody does join us, I'll stop us and do that. But for right now, because you chose to sit next to me, we're going to start with you. I'm going to have everybody in order say who they are, what their name, their business name, and what they make. And they can also show you what they brought with them, since we have some visuals here. So why don't you go first?
All right, my name is Wojcik, and my businesses are Luminous Wellness and Lauren Jane Workshop. And through the course of this residency program, I've been focusing a lot on ceramics, but I do a lot of different mediums too, like done some botanical dyeing of fabrics and jewelry, drawing, and just a lot of different hobbies kind of all go in to inform artistic practice.
Tell us about the pieces you brought.
Yeah, yep. So for the show, I'm working on a series of moon jars. So I have a few different firing techniques that I've done them in. So this one's Obara, which is Wojcik style of finishing a pot. So you dump the hot piece in a yeast, sugar, flour, water combination, and it sears onto the pot to create this beautiful design here. This one was a Sager fired piece, and then this was fired, and then I poured maple syrup over it, and it created that kind of black char.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so my grandpa makes maple syrup, and it's just kind of trying to tie it back to my strong sense of place that always informs my work, as well as kind of like the seasonality of the Midwest, the seasonality of an artistic practice, and what a business might look like. So,
very cool. Who would you go next?
Sure, my name is Josh Sommers.
Let's all talk a little louder, just in case.
Sounds good.
Okay? You didn't like shout. I can't do it, but we'll all try really hard.
All right. My name is Josh Sommers, and I'm part of the Birds in Clay with my wife, Liz, here. I'm primarily a ceramic artist, and I've been working a lot on functional pottery, and just recently I started dabbling a little bit more in kind of a little more like altering of pieces. So I brought a couple to show here. So this is one of my bowls that I made. I started making bowls, and I really liked the shape that they are, and then I started putting some stencils on the inside, designing it with different underglazes, and put a clear glaze over the top. So here's one of the pieces that I also brought. This is actually 2 bowls that I threw together And I put them together, and then I altered their form after the fact by adding swirls here, so you can see a lot of the lines that come up across the bowls, and then I glazed it after that.
What'd you glaze it with?
This is actually studio glazes back there.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it was Randy's red on the
Yeah.
underneath, and then just white,
Just white on the
Yeah.
top.
and somehow it came out like this.
Can I touch it?
Sure.
I told you we would keep it casual, right?
It's kind of heavy, but it's a
It's-
lot of
It's
clay.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It turned out so nice. Yeah.
I can also
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's the best part, right?
I think
Touching
it's
everybody's
really cool.
artwork.
Yeah, like this
I
stuff
think it
is,
is.
Yeah,
it's like kind of bubbled up on the bottom.
I like that texture a lot.
I do
think
too.
It really adds something
It's
to
like
it.
foam.
Josh, that's
I
really
love
cool.
it.
Yeah, look at that. We should be enjoying ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's heavy.
It is heavy, yeah. I mean, it's two bowls plus swirls. Swirls are all thick clay.
Yeah.
So
I'm surprised nothing cracked or anything.
it did correct.
The glaze, nobody knows that.
Now, if you can find it, that's
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it. You would never know. I would never
Yeah.
know if you hadn't shown it to me, but it just looks like it's part of the piece.
Yeah.
So Liz has been working on using epoxy with gold
Yeah.
dust.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna attempt that to fill in the cracks here.
Oh, I
don't
see. I
put,
wouldn't
like a
have
gold
seen it.
line.
Yep,
There's one kind of down here.
that's a great idea.
So it'll
The
be
gold
like
will look really
gold,
nice
yeah,
with that.
it'll match.
Oh, she really likes this.
My name is Liz Sommers. I am also the other half of Birds and Clay LLC, and I have been trying to grow in ceramics literally this year with not just the size of my pieces, but also in a way just spreading my wings, so to speak, and kind of finding, you know, deep within, kind of that magic within what's kind of down there and kind of your inner child, so to speak, what comes out of that. And I found I've landed on butterfly fairies and using underglazes in a way that make my pieces look a little more watercolor-ish. And so, for example, these two butterfly fairies are only about halfway done. They are made so they can hang from a nail in a wall, or a screw in a wall. And everything on the front of her skirt, I used stencils with different colors of underglaze. And then what I have to do remaining for her is dip her in clear glaze, send her back through the kiln, and then potentially use an overglaze, which is basically kind of it's a gold luster, they call it. And I can kind of highlight, you know, little gold specks on her wings or something, but I like to do that as well on my pieces. So 2 examples of just butterfly fairies that I'm just really loving right now. They're so whimsical and they're so fun, and they definitely speak to my inner child, which I just enjoy. And then I also do a lot of slab work. So this bowl I made from a slab, and we call it a hump mold. So I rolled out a big slab of clay, and then I have a stainless steel bowl that I just flip upside down, and then I put the clay on top of that, and I get a bowl out of it. And I put some of my stencils in there, and you can see I colored kind of the stencils with underglaze again, and it turned out to be this really cool, almost watercolor effect, which I really, really like. So it's very gentle and spring-like, and just really wraps with what I'm going for. So,
pass the bowl around.
yeah, you get it.
It is very pretty.
I like it.
Yeah, it turned out
Very soft.
very,
colors,
very soft, very, yeah,
very spring-like. you
very,
said.
very
Yeah.
springy, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a a fun bowl. I want to make more of them.
Love those colors. I
Yeah,
love it that you've got stencil on both the front and the back.
yes. So some of my stencils that I made are a little bit larger than what the form is. So I just wrapped it. I just wrapped it around the form. So for example, you know, there's a flower that comes kind of down, and I put the flower on the outside. It's just it's just fun. Yeah.
Can you pass that around too?
Yes, we did, but you want to see it?
I do really want to see it. I'm just gonna step out when I'm coughing because I don't want to cough all over you guys, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I can add a little bit to yours too, because we've worked on the clear glaze for
Yeah,
months now.
Probably
So-
6 months, huh?
Yeah,
it's one of the first things we talked about.
yeah. So the white clay was having trouble with crazing and cracking, so I probably tried 14 different
Oh, my.
recipes. And we finally came in on one that it's pretty clear, not as clear as some of them, but it actually holds up in the dishwasher and heat. You can boil
Yeah,
it, freeze
that's
it.
important for functional
So-
stuff, for sure.
Yeah. So this one could be functional or
Yeah.
decorative too.
So it's food safe.
So it's
Yes, it is food safe now,
Yes.
and it won't crack. Well, unless you drop it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you throw it on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're up to Beth now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go for it.
So my name is Beth Rathburn, and our business is called Sisters Glass. I do this with my sister. She's down in Madison, and she has her own kiln, and then we come together for shows and we combine our products. And so the pieces I chose kind of are geared toward our next show, which is in Sturgeon Bay over Memorial Day weekend. So this piece is sailboats, obviously, but I brought this because it's a nice example of both full fused and tack fuse. So the full fuse is the two sails. There's a bottom sheet of clear glass, and then it's decorated with a variety of colors using transparent glasses. So those go in for one fusing, and they're touching each other when they're fused, so that at the top and at the bottom, they kind of meld together. And then when it comes out, then I put it back in on the white base for a tack fuse. So they're attached to the base, but it's a little different than the full fuse. And then the stand is something that my husband makes and stains and sands and gets ready for me. So I always have my little pile of stuff for him to help me with.
So Beth, I had a question. Do you have to send that through the kiln twice then?
Twice.
Fully through the kiln?
Yes.
It's not like a
So-
shorter one for a tack fuse, right?
Well, shorter in that the heat, the temperature that it goes up to. So for the full fuse, you're going to go up to a temperature of 1400 to 1450. And so that makes everything flat. For the tack fuse, you're going to go probably like 1350, depending on how stiff you want it. Because 1350 to 1400 is going to give you some variety. I can show you with this next piece. This piece is a piece, again, that kind of did with Door County in mind. It's cherry blossoms. And the back is a full sheet of black. So that was full fused. Again, with this was clear with some white streaky in it. And then the bottom was just plain black. So that went through for one fusing. And then it's on top, the moon and the water here were added. And then these pieces, the stringers were fused on a full fuse where they ran together. I shouldn't say a full fuse though. I would say a contour fuse, which is kind of between a tack and a full fuse. So that's like 1380. So it's a little more than a stiff tack, but it's not quite a full fuse. And same with the cherry blossoms. I had a bunch of frit that was white and a light pink and then a darker pink, and I fused those together and got this frit.
You should tell us what frit is.
Frit is pieces, small pieces of glass. And Frit can be a variety of sizes. It comes in coarse, medium, fine, and then you have powders. And you can work with any of those different, they're all kind of, aside from powder, the rest are all considered frit, but so different sizes of glass pieces. And so look, whatever you're looking for, you know, you'll vary your heat and you'll vary your size. So, and then these kind of curvy stringers, those are vitrograph. So I have a friend that has a vitrograph kiln.
We should talk about what that is too.
A vitrograph kiln is you take a clay pot that has a hole in the bottom and it's never been used, so it doesn't have dirt or anything in it. So a clean clay pot has a hole in the bottom. You put it inside a vitrograph kiln. The vitrograph kiln has a hole in the bottom of the kiln. It's a smaller kiln, like maybe the size of a 10 by 10 box. So you put it in, you heat to 1400, 1450, so the glass becomes liquefied. And then it starts running out the bottom. And so you use like a leather glove and pliers. And as it's starting to drip down, you almost get like, you can imagine a turtle head coming out the bottom, and then you can start pulling it. And if you pull it straight, you'll get a straight line, but if you want it to kind of have some curviness to it, because as soon as it touches the air temperature, it hardens. So you can play with it. So what I've also done with it too, in addition to having the pliers, is to have a long screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, so it doesn't have that wide flat end on it. And kind of you can make curly cues, or you can just kind of, you know, direct it as you're pulling it. So, and then you would have a big cookie sheet underneath it to let things drop too. So, but then that's what you use these pieces for, is to make designs with. You can, a lot of people use greens for like foliage and grasses, but you can do it, you know, whatever you want. And then sometimes people use it for wood or water type scenes. So
That's very cool.
That's awesome.
thank you. So thank you. So Door County was the inspiration for that one.
Go ahead, Rachel.
All right, so my name is Rachel, and my business is called Modern Medieval Press. I am a printmaker primarily, but I do dabble in other things like watercolors and other inks, and just infusing the art, the techniques, or like the fantasies of the past, and bringing them to the present, because I love all things medieval, and hence the name, right? So a couple pieces I want to show real quick, and I don't know if you're ever going to see this, but if you go, can you bring it up?
Absolutely.
And it's
I
awesome.
probably should be doing this the whole time.
And it up there.
Can I just put it like right here?
Oh, there we go. So that one was inspired by some medieval textbooks.
Get my ankles right.
Get this one right, like, hello, hello. And then this one was done, the original was done just with gold and blue metallic watercolors, and this one is still at the Neville till Tuesday.
Yep.
So if you want to see this in person, it's really beautiful. And then I got a second one, which you might be able to like.
I should have offered for all of you. I apologize.
So this one is a new piece that just came off the press about a week or two ago. And this one is just a beautiful castle with background, and I'm going to be adding some gold to that one too. So I'm hitting the gold club here. So and then there's just another fun piece that will be coming out soon. I won't say much about that.
Yes.
Yeah. You'll have to come to show in July.
That's a good tease. I like that. So the way I want to do this the rest of our, what do we have? 40 minutes, is I have just kind of a list of questions. And we don't have to do like everybody has to answer. It feels way too formal for me. So I'm going to ask some questions. If you have an answer, let's go for it. If I have to choke and cough and run, here's my list of questions. Okay, so what have you, well, maybe everybody should answer this. What did you do before you got to this program, and how did you find this program?
remember how I found this program. I didn't know this building existed until the program.
Let's also say that you live in Oshkosh.
Yes, I do.
I found out about this program from the, one of the art shows.
Yeah, I talked to you at a market.
Yes,
Yep.
I believe it was the summer one last year.
Yeah, it might have been.
The
spring one. Yep.
Last year. And actually, there was a news crew there that morning,
Yep.
and they were interviewing some of
The current
that
residents.
year's residents.
Yep.
And I was like, what is this residency thing? So,
Actually, I should share some good news. Right before I walked out the door to come here today, I got an email from our PR person, and the city pages wants to do a feature on the 5 of you. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
we'll talk about that after we're done with the video. But
So for me, finding this, Liz had taken a ceramics class a couple years back, but it was in Appleton. And then we moved to Green Bay. So I decided to just look on Google for a ceramics course because none of us, well, I didn't take ceramics until here. So I just typed it in and the school came up. I was like, all right, let's join.
Yep.
So we went and took the night class there and found out that I really loved it and Liz still loved it. So we just decided to apply for the residency and we got accepted. So since we heard it, through the
Yeah.
classes and doing open studio.
what about you, Lauren?
So I studied art at UW-Madison, and then after I graduated, I got into ceramics for a couple years, but kind of set it aside for a while. And then I moved up here to the Green Bay area, and my dear friend was taking a ceramics class, and I decided to also sign up for one, mostly to make plates so that I could photograph the plates in some recipes that I was doing for the CSA for the farm that I work at. And I just fell back in love with it, as happens with ceramics, I feel like, somehow. And then I took, or I had a meeting with Lisa Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
About small business.
Let's clarify, Lisa Taylor used to run the Center for Entrepreneurship at NWTC.
Yes, and it was a very, very helpful meeting. And she mentioned that this residency program exists and encouraged me to apply. So that's cool. That was, the reason why
I
I
always
applied.
kind of like to hear the how do people end up here? Okay, so I'm gonna jump around because I put these in an order that don't really make sense, and I kind of like to feel where we're going. So let's talk about most enjoyable moments so far. Something that was really fun, something that you liked. My next question is something like that you learned or an aha moment, so we could tie these two together.
Is it about the residency?
Yeah,
or just
anything
about
this year, anything,
play or
anything, sure. In your process as an artist.
No, I have to think for a
Maybe
second.
not for software.
Sure.
For me, it's just been fun to have a space to come back to every few weeks, and then the community of the 6 of us, with Carrie's guidance and just holding this container for us to go through the process of what it feels like to try to be an artist and put yourself out there.
Spend a year focusing on it.
Yeah, and to have the whole year to do that, where it's not just a couple weeks of high pressure making, or it's just felt very nurturing. So that's just been fun to me, for me to get to know everybody and learn from each other.
Yeah, I can add on that too, because I remember you and I were back there in the studio just talking about throwing on the wheel. I said if I talk to Liz about throwing hers, she does a lot of hand building, so she's
over.
spaces out, and Lauren's like, oh yeah, talking about all her different pots. So it's definitely nice to talk to other artists. When you're back there in the open studio, normally you're just giving everyone side eye and almost chatting very often back there.
It's very independent.
Yeah, it is, even
Yep.
though it's a big group of people doing similar things. People are wearing headphones, so this really gets you involved with other artists, I think.
For sure.
For me, I think one of the biggest, I'm going to skip to the aha moment.
Go for it.
Is when one of our mentors throughout this residency program gave us literally a piece of paper that said, this is a creative license and you should use it to take this year to do whatever you want, however you want with your art. Know that you are an artist. Go do it. Spring off the diving board. And that was just so freeing and so wonderful. And I took it literally, and I feel like I just went right off the diving board. So kudos to Kat for that. That was great.
See, and I can piggyback on that too, because I think her very first time that she met with us, she asked us each when we recognized or realized that we were an artist. And I said, I've never considered myself an artist. And I remember her saying, what? But as this time has progressed, and I remember the session that we had over in the art garage that evening, and like so much of what she was saying and so much of her inspiration, I feel like it made me recognize that I have always had that inside me. I just have never had the time or the means to express it. And so I am loving this, and I am loving every part of what this has helped me do. I feel like it's helped me to push forward with getting our LLC established and getting things prepared, getting a website. I mean, Craig was wonderful in helping us to do that. And then, I think things like that were helpful in giving us the tools to be able to apply to a show like Sturgeon Bay, because I don't know, I just feel like it all has bit by bit come together in helping me to be where I was hoping that someday we would be.
Agreed.
For me, it's been all about the mentorship, whether it's with everyone here or with the other guest speakers that you bring in. In my other work,
I have a lot of clients and they call themselves woo clients. So they're like, we love the woo. And so like the spiritual, the mindset, and just preparing yourself that way as an artist. And then also the practical of like, social media, websites, and it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. It's like, I still learn from every time we've ever met. So it's just been real wonderful. And to see like what everyone else makes that isn't in my realm, and like all the glass and all the ceramics, I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
It's nice to see what everybody's working on. I always say that's my favorite part of my job. It's like, oh, what are you making today? It's very inspirational. You guys have all heard me say this, but I had a little bit of an aha moment this year. So I have sat through many of our presentations 3 or 4 times now, depending on the speaker. And every year I try to take a piece away from what I'm hearing for myself, because I also am an artist. And so Kat talks a lot about studio setup and how to kind of set yourself up for success. And I've heard her say it 3 years in a row now, and I finally did it. And I have a space in my studio set up for photographing my artwork as I finish them, so that they go into my image. So there's always something that I try to take away to build my own personal practice each year. It's so fun to kind of be able to do that stuff outside of my full-time work. Myself along too. What about something you accomplished this year? And I have a caveat here. It's like, did you challenge yourself in some way? Did you try something new? Did you sell something? Did you do a show? So anything you accomplished this year that you're proud of. Usually I also make a note here where it's like, please brag about yourself. It's important. You don't all have to jump at once. I'll start calling on people.
I was showing Liz today when I came in before this meeting to work in the studio. I had this little drop bass that it's the first time I've ever done a drop bass.
Oh, that's awesome.
I've always wanted to, but I just never have. I never knew how to do it. I didn't know the firing schedule, and I've been looking online and finding stuff for quite a long time, and finally did it. So. And then I just took it back, and I saw it today because I knew I was coming in, and so I took it back and I finished the top on it. So it's just a cute little thing, but
that's awesome though. Because did you have to kind of baby the kiln?
Did I have to what?
Like, with the drop bases, you have to kind of baby the kiln or kind of watch it or check it?
Yeah, unfortunately, my kiln, I have a little window on it that I can watch it as it's dropping, so I know when it touches, then I can advance to the next segment of the
So
schedule.
let's back up and tell everybody that she's basically dropping glass through a hole, right?
Yeah, so it's you have to make it your slab, so to speak, of glass has to be thick. And they say that it has, in addition to your 6 millimeters, it has to be an extra, I think it's an extra 2 millimeters for every inch of drop. So like if you want a really big drop face, you're gonna have to have like a 16 millimeter slab.
So basically, for everybody watching who doesn't know anything about glass, the glass melts while it's in the kiln and drops through that hole to make.
And glass wants to be at 6 millimeters, so
Yeah.
this is 6 millimeters. So if you've got 10 millimeters or 16 millimeters, you get some pretty big slabs.
And then as it's melting, you have to stop it at a certain point or that glass will all just fall.
Yeah, so you have a ring, and it's on stilts in your kiln, and then so you heat it slowly, so it's all heating to the same temperature. But then when it starts to drop, the center will drop through, and the remainder of it stays up on the rings. That's why you need that much thickness for it to spread. And so the sides do kind of come in a little as the weight of the center is pulling it through. So that's your, if you leave it too long, you might have just a big puddle on the floor because it just all just falls through. But so anyway, that's why you have to watch it as you see it dropping, then you have to watch it. And just when it hits the floor of the kiln is when you stop it and advance it to the cooling segment. So it'll stop heating and it'll keep the glass right there.
That sounds like a great challenge.
Yeah.
Kudos to you for doing that. That's great.
It's fun.
What about anybody else? What have you done this year that you're proud of?
Well, it's not finished yet, but I'm working on a big piece.
That's awesome.
And
Learning how to,
Like maybe biggest piece?
biggest piece so
Biggest
far.
piece.
So
That's
far.
great.
So,
learning how to transfer my image, so that way it's very exact onto the plate. It's been successful so far, so
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited for how that will turn out.
Working bigger is harder.
it is.
It's like a whole new set of problems.
It is,
Yep.
it is.
I'll just talk about the clear glaze again
Yeah.
because I feel like I spent a lot of my time in the.
You're like a glaze scientist at this point. Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
So part of this residency, I was allowed to work in the glaze room.
Yeah, we have a glaze
Here.
mixing room that's usually under lock and keys.
And it has a huge hood in there to get all the bad dust out of there, which is very nice. It's better than doing it in my garage.
Absolutely. Safer.
But I still do it in the garage too.
I hope you wear a respirator.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So I wear a respirator all the time. So that was something I really didn't think. But I wanted food safe, clear.
Wait, I want to back up because if anyone's watching this and considering the residency, I think people come to it with a certain set of ideas in mind. And then I meet with these guys one-on-one and say like, what do you really need right now? And Josh needed a good clear glaze. So I'm like, okay, how can we get Josh a really good clear glaze? And maybe one of his goals is working in the glaze mixing room, whereas nobody else needed that. So the residency can be kind of tailored to your specific needs.
And it did help a lot because the studio was changing over the white clay, and the clear that we had wasn't performing very well. So I needed one that was food safe, but that also let you do underglaze and coloring underneath. So I think I probably tested around 14 of those in total.
It's a long process.
Yeah, because it has to go through the kiln, and they only fire once a week.
So you have to make something.
Yeah.
You have to bisque fire it first.
Mhm.
Then you have to put the clear glaze on it. You have to glaze fire it.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're putting it through dishwasher tests and.
Yeah, boiling water test and ice water test. So I think each one of those took 2+ weeks for every single
For
test
sure.
that I ran. So,
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. And I don't know how this performs here yet.
Yeah.
Because I fired these outside of the studio, but I can still try that out.
For sure. You should pat yourself on the back for that. That's a big one.
Yeah,
That is
it
a lot
took
of work.
long time,
A
yeah.
lot of work.
So I was postponing making a lot of things
For sure.
just to get the glaze ready.
Well, and I think people don't realize that, like, when they go buy a piece of pottery, the amount of work that goes into it, you know? That's
important. You're considering your customer and their use of the piece.
Yeah, because I want them to last for sure.
Exactly.
Like, run through the dishwasher every day.
Yeah. Go for it.
So, yeah, for me, it's been just like execution of ideas.
Yeah.
I can spend a lot of time like thinking about doing something and what it might look like to do something, but to actually do it is another thing. So I don't know if it's just the inspiration from all of you, but also just guidance from like the speakers that have come in, especially around like, the business aspect of things. So I started working with an accountant, and I've done my bookkeeping and just kind of like making spreadsheets for different things. That's been so helpful. That's always really intimidated me, but just doing it more.
When I hear you talk, I hear the word in my head is like accountability. Like you almost have this like reason to push yourself because you're in this program, and because there's a big exhibit coming up for you guys too.
Yes. Yeah.
There's so many things.
You
Gosh,
rattle off a whole list.
I have a
Go for
whole list, but I will say at the top of my list is my wall fairy that I'm working on that she is not done, but she will be at the exhibition. This is my tease. She has taken me almost all year to create. I have never in my life done anything like it. She's basically a wall fairy that is huge. She is in pieces. So
She's almost Liz sized.
She's almost the size of me.
Yep.
Her legs are one piece, her skirt is another piece, her torso is another piece, her wings are separate, the feathers on her wings are it's just wild. And I have no idea why I am undertaking such a large task at this stage. Like I don't even know. I think it's this license to create, seriously, that helped me just go off the diving board. But I finally have all of her torso blew up in the kiln. Like I learned so much about, hey, when you spend 26 hours making a piece, if you don't, take the clay out of the back of it so it's not this thick, it's gonna go blow up in the kiln. It did, and I shed a couple tears over it. And then I remade her torso 3 times, So it's just, it's so many things, but I'm definitely most proud of her. And even if I get her over to the art garage and she falls on the floor, I am still going to be so proud of all this work that I put into her, because it is definitely, I'm going to say when all is said and done with her, I'm probably going to have over 300 hours at least into her, probably somewhere between 300 to 400 hours. And that is wild.
It is. And I think the amount of creative problem solving you've had to do is incredible.
I agree.
Sometimes I think that's the really fun part. It's like brainstorming solutions, but then to execute them, especially with a looming deadline, it's hard, it's stressful.
It's exciting, but it's very stressful, and somehow, you just keep moving forward.
And I always tell them that even if they have nothing to show at the end of the year, you still have something to show at the end of the year. If it was a pile of broken angel,
So be it.
you tell that story, right? You tell that story right now of 300 to 400 hours
Yes.
and how much you learned from that experience. Who cares if you don't have something to show for it?
Yes.
The education, the learning, the growth is all still there.
The growth is substantial.
Absolutely. Oh, which direction should we go? What's the best part of being an artist and what's the worst part? I can predict their answers, probably. I think it's a fun topic. What sucks? What's the worst? What do you hate to do?
Clean up.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that.
Absolutely. Having an art business is
I
hard because you
agree.
gotta do it all,
I
right?
never want to clean up.
No.
Yeah.
When I went doing stuff on the wheel, I like to think about like my computer, right? It's all clean, the desk is nice,
Yeah.
and like, all right, you get clean clothes, and all of a sudden you're doing real stuff, and you're like, oh, look at that nice piece, and you look at your hands, you're like, muddy, It's like, then you gotta clean all that stuff up, And at home, I'm using buckets, so I'm not
For sure.
putting stuff in like the sinks and stuff like that. So it's like trying to keep all that going. Like that's probably the worst for me. I like doing clay, but it's definitely not a dirty process.
Yeah.
Or all the ink everywhere.
Yeah.
And
There you
then
go.
you're like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
covered in it, right?
Yeah.
I had a resident during one of these panels say something like, if you don't have any art material on you anywhere, are you even actually making anything? At home, I always wear the same shirt when I'm working because it's just covered in paint. It's better for me than an apron because an apron doesn't cover enough. And I was wearing it on a virtual meeting this morning and somebody's like, that's such a cute shirt. And I was like, look closer, it's not cute, it's covered in paint. It's a mess.
I don't have good clothes and bad clothes anymore.
Me
They're all
neither.
just like pottery
That's-
clothes. Like,
That's probably the
Whatever I'm
life of
wearing.
an artist, right? Is like,
yeah.
if you want to have good clothes, they better stay in the closet.
Yeah.
What else do you hate? What do you love?
I hate opening the kiln and finding something with them all in it.
Yeah. Anybody who works with a kiln is stressful, right? It can be very exciting, like Christmas morning, but it also can be very sad, like something blows up.
or revealing the print and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
You can't put it back down now.
Yep.
Like try to smush it.
That process is the parts you can't always control. Same. I feel that. Surprised none of you said you hate the business part of things.
I avoid that.
Yeah. It's like a
Art markets. I'll say
necessary.
that.
Me too,
I don't
absolutely.
like art markets.
Or taxes.
Taxes, yep. I don't remember who I was talking to, but we were talking about, what was I talking to? It's kind of an important conversation because we were talking about artists. Oh, the new guy we're hiring for painting and drawing. His name's Miles. He's a current art teacher at East High School. And we were talking about when you go to art school or when you decide to become an artist, it's so different than it was even 20, 30 years ago because you have to navigate social media, you have to market, you have to be able to talk to people, sales pitch things, but you also have to be able to make really good stuff because otherwise nobody will ever want it. So not only a master of your craft, but you have to be a business person and you have to know all those marketing things. You can't just say like, hey Lauren, I made this, now go sell it for me. It doesn't work like that anymore.
I was actually thinking of that on the way over because you have to do, like you said, social media,
Yep.
website, and then working on all that stuff. Your art kind of goes to the wayside
It
a little
does.
bit.
Yep, and balancing that.
But then I've seen people who only do social media and make art, but their art is, I think it's so good that it almost sells itself
Yeah.
without a website and because they interact with the people.
For sure.
So there's different ways to get your art out there,
So
and also different ways to sell it,
Yep.
which I found trying to learn it all at the same time has been a lot. I mean, this program teaches you all of it, but it's still.
well, and there's so many different ways. That's
yeah,
why
a
it's
different
not
way to
like,
do it.
come take a class here and we'll tell you exactly how to start your art business. That's
Right.
not realistic, right? That would make Josh have to go sit at art.
You will not find Josh at most art markets.
Yeah.
You will find Mia.
But it also, it's my next question is how do you define your success, right? And that to me is what the best part about being an artist is you get to do that. So how do you define your success? What does success look like for you? What do you want out of this?
For me, this like kind of dovetails from the last question of like the hardest part about
Yeah.
being an artist is also the point where like I can find the most growth, which is like when kind of self-doubt comes in, when I'm questioning,
For sure.
am I really an artist or is my work worth sharing? Is it even worth making in the first place? And I think just like working through all of those problems, it just helps me grow personally. And my art's just a way for me to like express what's inside of me and tell a story and just share all of these things that I think we all have to share. And one of the ways that I've been working through that too is by sharing my newsletter, and that's like a different modality, and it feels really good to share in that way, which is different from how I share on social media. And it all just kind of works together. And for me, that's like success. It's just growth and sharing.
Figuring out what works for you, the right pieces in the puzzle.
Yeah.
What about you guys? How do you know you're doing a good job?
for it, you're like,
Love that.
Yeah.
A little external validation, absolutely, for sure.
it's a nice little pat on the back.
It is. It's nice to be noticed and recognized of like, oh yeah, this person is doing something really cool.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I love having a successful show. I love having the interaction with people. I'm not even saying people have to buy things.
Yeah.
I just love it when they come and admire something or they enjoy it.
Yeah,
or
you can
they-
see the look on their faces.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
And for me, I love doing this with my sister. And I love that, you know, we can call each other and say, well, so how would you do this? Or what temperature would you go up to? Or what do you think? You know, and it's just been, it's been really fun being able to share that with her.
Absolutely. For sure.
I agree with that, Beth, for sure. I also think if I'm continuing to make things that I feel very inspired to do, there's some level of success to that. I get a lot of folks, whether it's friends or family, who will send stuff and say, oh, think about this, think about that, make, you know, make this, make that. And that's awesome. And usually I use that as sense of inspiration, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
Doesn't resonate.
It doesn't
Yep.
resonate with what
You're like compelled to
what
make.
what I feel very compelled to make. So I feel like as long as I'm listening to that voice inside, it keeps me on track. And that to me, I'm being successful, I guess, or doing the right thing.
I do think authenticity is a measure of success.
That's the word, authenticity.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's my favorite thing to do is when you guys are talking and I'm like, how would I summarize what she's saying right now? And I think you're talking about you're being authentic. You're doing what you're meant to do and what inspires you and fulfills you, and that's success. Very cool.
For me, I think a lot of it comes down to still learning
Yeah.
art and what I like to make. I've now done a lot of different, not necessarily styles of like the shape of the pieces, but almost like the painting of this bowl on the inside. You know, that was someone that I admired on social media and tried to emulate their style, I guess, and see if I would like to continue doing something like that in my own and like incorporate my ideas into it. You know, and this is also a piece that's very different from bowls. And I'm continuing to have other works in progress. So when I look at someone's art and I really like it, and then I attempt to do it, and kind of like getting those pieces to the finish line, and I have a whole pile of busted up ones, and one's successful, to me, I like doing that. Not necessarily getting it to the end and selling it, just the art of making that piece to completion.
I think all of you talked about growth in some way, right? Like that's important to all of you. Hence the name of your exhibit. Right? But I think that's important. I mean, you could have just said like, I need to make a paycheck. I need to make a living, right? But usually as an artist, that's not always the definition of success. Obviously, you are here in a business-focused residency to learn how to do that, right? But as an artist, oftentimes we're more compelled to make. And I find, even myself, like if I start doing what other people tell me I should do, then it feels like work.
Yes, I would agree.
And that's hard too, right? You want your art and your inspiration and your kind of creativeness to feel like work.
Right.
That's hard.
And maybe some folks do, and that's great.
Yeah.
And some folks don't.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I think some folks are really great at like taking commissions. I know a lot of artists make a lot of money that way. And if they can do that and they enjoy that, more power to them. I love that. I can't do that. It feels, I have a full-time job, right? I'm on this camera every month doing these things. I just actually had a woman reach out and say like, I feel like I know you because I see you every month. I love that. I feel like a talk show host. But right, I have a full-time job. So if I went home and then did more work, that's not going to be fun. So. Okay, we are coming up on our last 10 minutes. So I usually end with any advice for other artists or anything else you'd like to share in general about the residency. It's not, it doesn't have to be a sales
Yeah.
pitch,
Yeah.
but
But, you know, the mentorship
yeah,
and the one-on-ones with you and meeting and talking to other aspects of your business.
Or, your mindset and just taking care of yourself holistically has just been really good for me.
you probably all heard me say like, we're people first, like that's my kind of philosophy with my team here too, is that even though despite my horrible voice, I promise you, I have been taking care of myself.
I think one of the best parts of it has been this camaraderie with this group. I just feel like this group has melded really well and,
We fuse together.
yeah.
Put you all in a kiln for a year.
It's
and
very, very fun.
Actually, I'm going to take that as a big compliment. Thank you. I put a lot of effort into choosing not only the 5 best that I think come through, but I spend a lot of time analyzing if I think they're going to get along well. Because that's hard too. If you put a lot of people like have super strong personalities in a room together, that's a hard balance. And so I tried to, after the first year, I noticed how that worked. And I thought, okay, that has to be an important factor when choosing. And so our application, and if anyone's watching this who's going to apply, we ask about how you think you could contribute to the group. We talk about your goals, and that's a lot of the information we spend time with to look at who should be here for the year.
I think being able to focus on 1 or 2 things out of a program like this is very helpful instead of trying to do everything. Because
You've
like
heard me
you
say
said,
that a ton, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you go on
you don't have to do it all. You can't do it all at once.
Right.
social media, website, like even learning to do videos on social
Yeah.
media. Like you can just choose 1 or 2.
Yep.
That'll take you a whole year.
Absolutely.
But trying to do them all at once, it adds more stress, I guess, to try and bring everything up to the same level.
For sure.
So I
You
think-
can't do it all. You're only
Yeah.
one person. Even if 2 people are in your business, you just
Sure.
It's still only
Yeah,
one
it's,
person.
yes, absolutely.
It's really important to focus on just your narrow goals and accomplish them, right? And feel that kind of level of success so you don't feel like you're drowning and you can't keep your head above water. That's not good for anybody.
For me, I think the art piece, the continuing to grow in there is something that I need to continue doing, because what are you gonna do with social media and a website and all that stuff if your art is lacking, I
Exactly.
guess? So,
If you don't have the art
you
to
know.
back it up, you don't even have a business to have.
yeah, you don't need that. So, I
Yeah,
mean, enjoy your art.
absolutely.
I think my biggest piece of advice to artists would be get in the studio.
Yeah.
Get in there. And even when you don't feel like it, because there's always a balance, just do something creative. You may not physically be in the studio, but you're there in a way. And that has been a game changer for me. You will find, people can attest to finding, if I'm not at home, my husband can attest, he's right here. If I'm not at home, 90% of the time you will find me in the studio.
Yeah, there should be a cot in the back with Liz's name on it.
Yeah, I spent the vast majority of my time back there. Yes, I started a part-time job here in February, but even prior to that, this residency started last summer. I was in the studio almost every day, but I think that helps so much with your growth and your learning and your experimenting and your try and learn, and it makes such a huge difference. So if there's one key takeaway, I think it's that, get in the studio and just keep making something.
I'm going to reference Miles again, our new instructor, but he was talking a lot about his teaching philosophy and how, as much as he likes to teach, he likes to encourage his students to learn by doing. And I think as artists, that's so important, because I could be like, hey, Lauren, here's how you do this. But until you actually feel it and do it, that there's a barrier, right? And I think that's the most important thing. And I have decided actually for next year's residents that that'll be the first topic we talk about is your studio practice.
Absolutely.
Because as Josh said, if you don't have art, how are you going to have a business? If you have nothing to sell, that's probably the most important part. And I went to the conference, Beth, and March down in Madison, and one of the presenters there was really talking about developing your studio practice and being diligent about it. And so even when I go home after a 40-hour week, 50-hour week, whatever it is, if I don't feel like making anything, I'll even just go prep my canvases.
Exactly.
Like, it may not feel super creative.
Yep.
But it's kind of mindless, and it sets my studio up for when I am really inspired, I'm ready to hit the ground running. And so that's the other kind of takeaway I got from that conference that impacts me personally, is like, oh yeah, even if I don't feel like going to go sit in the studio and paint a masterpiece, right? Like, if I can get some gesso on a canvas, that's success for me, right?
Absolutely.
I think that was a really good point. So.
And a piece of advice that Frank Flores gave was to, like, even if you can't be in the studio every single day, schedule some time every week where you're going to prioritize going to the studio, even if it's for a couple hours on like Thursday evening. Maybe that's the only time you can find in your schedule to do it, but just make sure you clear out distractions and go do it like it's your job. Just, yeah, do that. But I think as far as advice, just maybe slowing down a little bit and just acting with intentionality and taking care of yourself and not discounting all of the other things in your life that can be informing your practice, whether it's just going to take a walk and noticing the bird song or just the weather and maybe meditation, preparing food to eat. I feel like all of it can just inform your practice and your art so that it's the best expression of yourself.
Yeah, and like, where else do you find inspiration if you're not out doing other things? I'm going to talk about Miles all the time, so hopefully he watches this. But Miles, we were talking about high school art students, right? And like, where did they get their inspiration from? And a lot of times they don't have a lot of life experience. You know, when you're young, you haven't been through a whole bunch of things. You don't have inspiration or emotions to draw on. And so, you know, encouraging other hobbies, right? Encouraging experience in the world, getting out in nature. Where else do you find and draw inspiration from if you're only in the studio? So there is, you know, kind of a balance. Right? Okay, we've got about 2 minutes left. So I, again, want to mention that these 5 wonderful artists have been working on a lot this year to contribute to their final exhibition. It'll be at the Art Garage across the street from us. It's called Collective Growth. I actually have all their marketing materials sitting right behind me to give to them. So we're going to do that, get everybody invited. So keep it on your calendar. July 6th to August 4th, it'll be up at the Art Garage. They are mostly open weekends, so make sure to check out the website if you want to visit. But I would highly encourage everybody to come to the opening reception. It is a lot of fun. It'll be July 11th from 5 to 7. Love everybody there. See if anybody wants to talk. We can have that looked like a look of fear. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But it'll be a great night to celebrate your accomplishments this year and see it all on display and see it all come together. So, you guys have any other parting final thoughts for anybody? Okay, cool. Thank you all very much.